How to Create a Glitch Monologues Season 22 Chapter 6. This is Season 22 of How to Create a Glitch in the Matrix Monologues Episode 6. In this episode, we will be revisiting the topic of tension and release in relation to consensual and non-consensual realities, as well as outs. In past episodes, we talked a great deal about how outs represent the collapse of our consensuality, the gradual increase in social tension, which leads to the flight or fight response, searching for an out, to facilitate a bodily rhythm, such as smoking a cigarette. Throughout this podcast, we have used social tension to refer to the natural tension created by social stress. But social tension is a larger subject than that. Whether we are alone or in groups, our emotional tension gradually increases with time. Thus, even in the absence of social interaction, we may need to take outs to facilitate the release of tension. Further to our bodily rhythms, expression of certain releases is required periodically to combat the overabundance of tension in our bodies. Since we also know that increased social tension leads to buildup of adrenaline in the system, and a flight or fight response to social interaction, we see that by escaping our consensuality, when in the presence of others, we are creating a nadir of emotional tension in our bodies. Thus, social tension accumulates both in groups and alone. The natural flow of our body's emotional tension is reflective of the celestial rhythms influencing the patterns of our life, as much as it is about gateways and mirroring. For example, let's say you take a smoke break every 30 minutes at home while you are alone. This creates a consistent pattern of release. Each time the tension builds to some maximum, you take an out, going outside to smoke a cigarette. The problem is that your neighbor also takes a smoke break every few hours. Probability tells us that the chances of you and him coinciding with your smoke breaks is reasonably low. But, and I suggest you test this, this is not what happens. What you will find is that you and he coincide naturally with your smoke breaks far more often than would probability reveal. And the reason for this is simple. First of all, the patterns created by the celestial rhythms generate local waves of emotional tension in the body. These local waves produce common peaks and troughs for non-interacting members of a social system. Thus, because the participants' emotional tension peaks coincide, so too will their natural cause to seek a release. The second major circumstance that leads to this is mirroring. Mirroring of another's behavior, whether or not it is spatially or temporally segregated, creates a link between the minds of the two actors. So long as the release, in this case smoking, is the same, it will lead to the gradual mirroring of the behavior spatially and temporally. Third, even when we escape our non-consensuality, the system is constantly, through the mechanism of mirroring, linking us to others, creating conjoined consensualities. This means that, for example, when two people leave the room at the same time for a cigarette to escape a loud room of their friends, it has just as much to do with natural processes as the artificial desire to keep each other company. Even if these two were not interacting, there will be, by natural function of the system, the gradual linking of their bodily rhythms according to this release. This tells us that consensualities almost never exist in a vacuum. Although they may be dissonant, there is always some residual element of a conjoined state with other local actors, created by the common waves of tension in the background of the environment. It may also be true that these natural waves of emotional tension in the environment, manifesting as S waves or P waves, could represent something more viscerally important to the operation of the system. Many religions and philosophies believe in such things. For example, in Hinduism, they call this universal vibration the Om. That which joins all of our souls in the all in all. But I prefer to think of it in somewhat more scientific terms as the natural rhythm of emotional tension, created by our common celestial rhythms through the processes of gateways described above. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment and subscribe.